It is a real privilege to be here, and I must say that I've already learned so much just being in the room with so many wonderful people already. I'd like to have time to visit with every one of you. Um, this group is really shows the civic spirit of this town. I'm very impressed as a uh, uh, I don't get out enough. Unfortunately, I work an awful lot in the library, and I'm retiring at the end of this year, so I'm looking forward to having some time to do a little more. I grew up in East Fort Worth, and I came to Grapevine as a Boy Scout, and we camped on Grapevine Lake way back in the '60s, and so this is fun for me to come here in this capacity. The UTA, this is where I work at the Jenkins Garrett Library and the Virginia Garrett Map Library. And I don't know how many of you have been to UTA and already and have seen the library before. Anybody? Okay, good. Well, there's a few. Thanks, Tommy, for inviting me, and appreciate it. It's a great library. We have some amazing artifacts relating to the history of Texas. And we cover a lot of different subjects. First off, the university archives. Our little university started as a military academy way back, and actually it was some early schools of various different names, boys' schools and other things. This is the Carlisle Military Academy in 1901, and of course we have a lot of stuff on the university. We also have a Texas labor and political collection. It's UTA. One of our professors was interested in the history of Texas labor, and he managed to get us started collecting material from all the labor unions in Texas, and managed to get the AFL-CIO as we're their repository for a lot of their archives. And some of our oldest labor union materials go back to a German brewery in San Antonio, some brewery workers. So it's pretty interesting stuff. We also have a lot of great local history materials relating mostly to Fort Worth, but also to a lot of places in the Metroplex. There's the B.B. Paddock papers, for example. B.B. Paddock was a Fort Worth mayor and a real big booster of Fort Worth. And without him, he was the Amon Carter of the 19th century, you might as well say, because he was a newspaper editor and promoter of the Texas Spring Palace. And some of our local history collections are just astounding. This is a wonderful set from a doctor in Dallas, Dr. Emerson Emery. He served in World War II. His letters are most poignant. He's writing his mother, telling about various things about the segregation in the Army, the discrimination that he faced. But it's just wonderful stuff. We have people from all over the world that come to hear about this, and they're fascinated because he was a good man and an amazing person to have. His papers are just amazing.
Would you go back one second?
Sure.
What is the Texas Spring Palace?
The Texas Spring Palace. That's a good question. The Spring Palace. We actually had a big collection relating to the Spring Palace. It was made entirely of Texas products, and it was from 1889 to 1890. It was in Fort Worth. And and I know some of you already know about it, lots about it, but the Spring Palace was entirely Texas materials, things from farms. It was an exposition hall, and it burned after only 2 seasons. And so it was right next to the T&P building downtown Fort Worth, or the post office, if you know where the post office is. There's still a monument there to the Englishman who died trying to save some people out of the burning fire. Anyway, it put Fort Worth on the map back in the 1890s. This was also another Some of our photograph collections are really fun. We have the first, it's a copy photograph. It's not the original. I don't know where the original is, of the first airplane to land in Fort Worth. It was a Blériot, an 11, I believe. Well, he was a Frenchman. He's the guy that flew he's the first guy to fly the English Channel. Yeah. And so this Blériot 11 was flown by another guy, though. It wasn't Blériot. I think it could have been Roland Garros. I think it really was. Anyway, Garros became an ace in World War I. Was one of the first ones to fit a synchronized, or not a synchronized, a deflector prop on his machine, and anyway, that's one of the pieces. We also have the Roswell UFO debris, and we've had more interest in that. We had a guy came all the way. He was a forensic scientist, came all the way from Australia to make sure that there wasn't some sort of secret code written on here. They wanted to know exactly what was in the general's hand over there. But I believe it's actually a weather balloon, but I won't argue with it. Roswell needs the Chamber of Commerce needs to think it's a weather balloon, or it's a UFO. Excuse me. The other things that we have, and this was Tommy came in one day, and one of our exhibits we had a daguerreotype. I managed to talk to Tommy long enough to find out he was related to the Van Zants in Fort Worth, and I said, "Well, we've got a daguerreotype of one of your relatives." Or your wife's relatives, I guess. I don't remember, but anyway, he's related to everybody here. So he's probably related to me, and I don't know it. But but anyway, it's fascinating. This is Louisa Van Zant Clue, and it was taken about 1850 in Austin, Texas. But that other guy is a Texas mounted volunteer. That was a gift from Dr. William Schultz. And we don't have a lot of early daguerreotypes, but they have some at the Amon Carter where I used to work. And as you may know, they have the first photographs taken in war. There's a set. One of them is at Yale, and one is at the Amon Carter. And it was taken in the middle of the U.S. war with Mexico. And it's General Wool in the streets of Saltillo. And there were two sets done at the same time. One of our oldest cartographic material is from the Nuremberg Chronicle. It's a 1493 woodcut, or maybe 1494. But anyway, it was showing the Earth as it was known. Here's Africa, Europe, and Asia. And of course, it's divided, since there's only 3 continents back then at that time. They didn't have North and South America. And so, or at least they didn't know about it. And so you have the sons of Noah at the top holding up the world right there, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And since Noah had 3 sons, everybody was taking their Bible a little too literally back then. All right. Then we have facsimiles that you can come in and take a look at. This is, for example, a facsimile of the Vatican Ptolemy. And that's, again, the world, the 3 parts of the Ptolemaic world, or the world according to the Aristotelian ideas of the 2nd century, and pretty impressive facsimiles. Here's one that takes up our entire table. It's a facsimile of the Fra Mauro map that's in Venice at the Biblioteca Marciana.
Was that originally a paper map?
No, it was originally, it's actually framed, and it was probably, I don't know the exact, I think it may be on vellum, actually, the original. But it's a big, beautiful map done in around 1453. And it just shows, again, 3 continents. That's it. And there's a section over here of the paradise right here. And this monk that put this together, he used a lot of different sources, and he was a real scholar, and he investigated, and he said, well, I think that paradise is probably an idea, not necessarily a place that we can find. He says, I haven't been able to locate it on the earth. So I thought that was pretty knowledgeable. Some of our early maps, for example, this is one from 1513, and we just recently got a wonderful collection of African maps. A guy called me up one day and said, I want to buy you maps of Texas. He says, I'm from Euless. I grew up in Euless, and he said, I've got a little money now, and I really want to help UTA because I like what you're doing at UTA. And I said, well, you know, every map of Texas is going to cost you amazing. And I said, we almost have every map of Texas that there is. The only things that's left are variants, minor variants. And the research value is not going to be that helpful. I said, why don't you collect maps of Africa? And he took me up on it. This was about 6 years ago. Now UTA has one of the largest collections of early maps of Africa in the whole United States. And I told him he'd make a bigger splash at UTA and he did. I mean, it's fantastic. It's an extraordinary collection. He focused on West Africa, since most of the slaves in our area came from West Africa, many of them. And it's a wonderful way to engage students at UTA and around the world, really, with by having it here in the Metroplex. We can say, we got to talk about this stuff. It's really interesting, and so it's good work. We have print collections. Our oldest books from 1533. This is a cosmography showing our typical humanity always thinks of themselves as the center of the universe. And right here is here's the world right here. The moon is going around it, the Mercury, Venus, and then the sun. You know, everything that goes around. This is the old conception of the world. And so, yeah, a cosmography is a description of what they thought was the universe at the time. And so it includes the world, but everything around it. So the cosmos.
In 1533, they wouldn't know Mercury and Venus and Mars and so forth, would they?
Yes. Oh, yes, absolutely. Yeah. In fact, they had already figured out that this was the outmoded way of thinking, actually. So they really knew that this was, and some of them knew that already. And so, it's incredible. We recently got a group of celestial charts that were given to us. And we're already planning, events with the physics department and stuff like that. These are from celestial charts from the 1730s and earlier, and they're magnificent. And some of the knowledge, you'd be really surprised. There's some great knowledge going on back there. These people were every bit as intelligent as we are, and in many cases they're much more intelligent than me. So it was really amazing to think about how they. Oh my goodness! Yeah, I mean, I have got this silly phone here, and this is one of our great benefactors, Jenkins Garrett. Was a Fort Worth lawyer, grew up on the north side of Fort Worth, and he gave his Texana collection and his Mexicana collection to UTA. And his wife was a collector of maps. And whenever they traveled the world, she would look for maps while he looked for rare books and manuscripts and things. And so we're just real lucky to have their collection at UTA. And he was friends with Harry Ransom down at UT Austin. And he didn't want to give it down to the UT Austin because it'd get lost down there because they got so much stuff down there. This is a chance for the people of North Texas to have a lot of great pieces. And so he gave it up here. And we're very, very grateful for that. One of our rare books right here is the Cabeza de Vaca. Now, I note that Cabeza de Vaca was, this is the first recorded account of Europeans and an African in Texas that survived. And but sadly, for your Chamber of Commerce, they probably did not go through Grapevine, as far as I know. I'm sorry, but I know this is a disappointment. But y'all do a great job, though. I must say that I'm highly impressed. So this is one of our great pieces. I just found it recently. I mean, I found it. Mr. Garrett knew about it a long time ago, but it hasn't been pulled out very much since his time. And it's an original copy of the Mexican Constitution of 1824, and it's like having an original U.S. Constitution signed by Alexander Hamilton or James Madison, because it's signed by Miguel Ramos Arizpe down there of Coahuila. Texas was part of Coahuila at the time, and Ramos Arizpe was one of the most important politicians in Mexico at that point. And the Mexican Constitution was ratified by the Senate, the Mexican Senate, and the guy that was head of the Senate at that time was Lorenzo de Zavala. So it's really important material, and we're pretty glad to have that. And then here's another great treasure at UTA. It's an original copy of the Texas Declaration of Independence. And now that Mexican Constitution was based on a Spanish Constitution, not the U.S. Constitution, but this one is, of course, based on the U.S. This declaration is based on the U.S. Declaration of Independence. So it's from 1836, and there are a lot of fakes out there, but this one is an original because it belonged to George W. Smythe, and George, or Mr. Smythe, corrected his own name right here. It's spelled George W. Smith on here, and he put the Y on it. He also added two really important people that they left off of the original printing. One of the guys was George C. Childress, who was the guy that actually drafted this document. It'd be like leaving off Thomas Jefferson off the U.S. Declaration of Independence. They were in such a hurry with the Mexican army bearing down on the Alamo and there in Washington on the Brazos. So another person they left off with was Sterling Clack Robertson. And Sterling Robertson, the Robertson colony, is part of this. Originally, this area was called part of Robertson County at some points, and I'll show you a map of that. But on the back of this one, it's got a letter from, or an explanation from George Smythe to his descendants, talking about the convention. He says the convention assembled at the town of Washington, blah, blah, blah. And so it's a really marvelous document, which we recently had conserved. Our Mexican War collection is, wow, it's unbelievable. I've been to Yale and to the Library of Congress to look for Mexican War materials, and I've also been to the Bancroft. And I'll say our collection is really way up there. It's amazing, and there's some great pieces. And fortunately, I've been able to buy some pieces. Years ago, I worked at the Amon Carter, and when I was there, we did an exhibit on U.S. prints of the U.S. war with Mexico and daguerreotypes of the war. And so I became very familiar with that war at that time. So ever since I've been at UTA, we've been adding some great materials. Now we have the papers of George Wilkins Kendall, who was the Wolf Blitzer, or the Walter Cronkite of the Mexican War. Just as Walter Cronkite was for the World War II, or I'm trying to think of some of those great early World War II, Bill Malden, not Bill Malden, but some others. Great guys. They were, well, George Wilkins Kendall was that way for the Mexican War. He followed General Worth's division all over Mexico, and we have his papers at UTA. Kendall County is named for him, down Bernie and down that area. So that's one of our great pieces. And he teamed up with an artist, Karl Nebel, a German who had been in Mexico beforehand, and they did this wonderful illustrated book of the U.S. war with Mexico illustrated and printed it in Paris with chromolithographs. It's magnificent. And even better, which I wish we could buy for UTA, I've never found a copy, but would be the Voyage pittoresque dans la part le plus intéressant du Mexique, which is the travels that Nebel did earlier of Mexico without the military stuff. So anyway, this guy was quite an artist, and to have that collection, we've got 3 copies of this portfolio, thanks to the Kindle papers. Now, again, the library, as you walk farther into it, this is the Garrett Map Library, and on display at this point was our African map collection. We had cartographics, or maps with figures, all over the back walls, back over there, and then also Brown and Hogenberg city views of Africa. And then we also have the celestial charts. This is a recent group together. These are the physicists and the historians from UTA, all plotting this next event with celestial charts that we received.
Are you doing anything? I know there's some total eclipse of the sun, or there's something.
Yes, that's coming up, and that's what this is for. So I don't know. There's something in April. That's when we're doing this. So, and I will already be retired when that happens. So I'm going to try to help them as much as I can and have the stuff ready for them, and maybe we'll have it together. But this is part of our parlor. This space gets converted. Sometimes it's used for lectures, and other times it's used for other kinds of events. But this was when we had our African map collection up. As I keep going around, recently we did this exhibit on the shifting shapes of early Texas, and we pulled out a lot of our early maps and documents and things of Texas. And so we started with early shapes without Texas. This is the Beheim globe that doesn't have North or South America on it. There is in the beginning, Texas was without form and void, as I like to say. It was pretty neat. Also, some of our early shapes of North America are pretty fun. This is a 1540 map. By the way, I want to put in a plug for Larry Grobe. This guy has done a great job on early. I loved his article on maps of Grapevine. So I'm not going to really tell you any more about Grapevine than he is, unfortunately. But I will show you a little bit. We're getting to Grapevine, don't worry. But this is the first printed map of New Spain. And Yucatan is an island over here, rather than a peninsula off the coast of Mexico. And you can see the beginnings of the Texas Hill Country near Grapevine, right up there. Yeah, and here's a variant of that same map. Now Yucatan is a peninsula, and that's the good thing about a copper plate engraving. You could easily beat out the copper and then fix it if you needed to. Yeah, this one's from 1561. The earlier one was from 1548. That's so a few years later, they made this copy. And then this is a later edition right here that's colored with, gives you a little bit of. So we have quite a collection. Now, the Ortelius maps, they're always fun for collectors. People like to collect them. It was from the first real, or considered the first true atlas. And for our area right up here, I wanted to point out right up here, somebody pointed this out, this word, Terlechichimeki, right up there. See that word, that really long word? We think it's a Latinized spelling for a Nahuatl word, which was for the Chichimecs. And the Chichimecs were considered uncivilized barbarians, according to the Aztecs. Now, that's just from your perspective, you know. I mean, that's a fascinating thought. Anyway, at least that's. Correct me if I'm wrong on some of this. You know, you're welcome to correct me on anything. I like to hear some input. Right over here is an early map of Florida. Again, this is our part of the world, and of course, all of Florida was stretching all the way to Texas, and you can see and this is by Geronimo Chavez, who was the cosmographer mayor, or the top cosmographer of the Spanish world at that time, working in Sevilla. And he was credited by Ortelius on this map. So now, as you can see, it's getting worse, actually. We all of a sudden, California is an island. I have to read this out to you. This is Henry Briggs, and this is one of the great pieces in our collection right here. California, sometimes supposed to be a part of ye western continent, but since by a Spanish chart taken by ye Hollanders, it is found to be a goodly island. Arr, you know, it sounds like a good pirate talk, you know, but fascinating piece there. And this mistake was on maps, European maps, for 100 years. And we have just dozens of European maps with California as an island. So the shifting shapes of Texas really shifted. You have the Rio Grande from New Mexico flowing into the Gulf of California over here. All kinds of cool stuff, you know. And then you have the Mississippi River going through Texas, going right through Grapevine. So it's it's right here. See, right here, and right, yeah. That's supposed to be. This is the Illinois, and that's the Ohio right there, going through Texas. Now, part of this problem was due to La Salle and Hennepin, the explorers, the French explorers. When they went through, they didn't have proper instruments to measure what they were doing. And La Salle went back to France after this first trip down the Mississippi, went back to France and said, you know, I want to build a fort at the mouth of the Mississippi. Well, guess where he went to build that fort? He went to, he went to the coast of Texas, of course. And that's what happened. And so here is another map done about that time, showing the Mississippi going right straight through Texas, and or this is the whole map right here. And California is an island. This showed up on a lot of globes of the period. Now the French, they figured it out after La Salle's mistake, and you know this particular map, this is a detail of it showing La Salle's, he is shot by one of his own men for his ineptitude, and another guy over here, his lack of leadership. And then, of course, to make it fair, the assassin is killed on the right. And they moved the Mississippi, finally, a little to the east. And so that's supposed to be the Mississippi going into the Gulf of Mexico. And you see it's been moved over there. And that's, and feel free to leave if you guys, I remember some people were saying they needed to go early. So you're not going to disturb me at all if I'm talking too long. But we have a lot of these wonderful maps. This is an Englishman. Even though the French have corrected the inaccuracies, the English are still doing some of it themselves right over here for quite a while. Now, on all these maps, there's a lot of Texas Indians names that are mentioned on all these maps. But we don't really get a lot of images of Indians until much later. Now, the Spanish did do some occasional wonderful watercolors, or occasionally these are over in the Archives of the Indies in Seville. but very seldom did they leave a lot of really good images of what they were encountering. And so you almost have to wait until the mid 19th century before you get any prints of Indian villages.
How about the fires going?
Yeah, and this would be the type of villages that were in our area. You know, the Village Creek raids in Arlington, actually on Lake Arlington, or what's now Lake Arlington. They probably had a village like that rather than a group of teepees. So, and they were burned by General Rusk at some point. Now, one of our earliest documents, this is a really cool piece. It just came in recently. A gift from a fellow in Denver, Colorado, who's a member of the International Map Collectors. He has lots of money, and he managed to find this Alonso de Leon letter, which was still in a family in Mexico, and it's just an incredible piece from 1689. Now, he gave the map that goes with the letter to the Denver Public Library, but he gave the letter to UTA because he knew we'd pull it out more often than Denver would pull it out. So that was, it's in Spanish, and it's very, very legible. We've had one of our professors at UTA has already translated, but I can almost read it, and I'm not a Spanish expert at all. So it's really pretty amazing to see how beautifully done it was. Now, a few of our wonderful pieces are, chromolithographs from the 19th century, but we even have several copies of Antonio Margil de Jesus's biography, or his hagiography, as you might want to say. And so that's one of the, on the right, he's technically probably not in Texas at that moment, but it's still a wonderful piece. And you think of Texas Indians and the first missionaries in Texas. This is an English copy of our 1718 French map. And there's the French version of it right there from 1718. Same year that San Antonio was founded, same year that New Orleans was founded, this map. So it's an amazing piece. And it's the first map to mention a word Texas on it. Over here, it says Mission de los Tejas établi, and then it gives the year right there in French, 1710 or 1716. That you can't really see it's connected there. But you have the Indiens errants et anthropophages. Now, you don't need to know that because I'm going to show you what that is in English. This English map, wandering Indians and man-eaters. So some of these maps are, you can imagine this kind of branding on a map, what that does for the people on the coast when they're encountered by Europeans. They're going to come in with a predisposed attitude, the Europeans at least. And so this type of labeling can be a problem. There's the missions of the Tejas established in 1716 right there. And then here, Monsieur de La Salle was killed in 1687. Now, those French maps were imitated by everybody. And this is one of our more recent acquisitions, a Russian map based on this French map. And so there's a Russian map of New Spain and a French map of New Spain. And of course, the French were the ones that were the leaders in cartography. One of our great pieces at UTA is this big, it's almost as big as this screen right here, but it is a wall map of Mexico, Louisiana, and the Missouri Territory. And it's showing all of Mexico before the U.S. war with Mexico. And what is so cool in our area right here is lots of a horse prairie. This is Red River up there at the top, and this is the horse prairie. And it says Philip Nolan and party killed here. Not too far from us, really closer to the Brazos, but they were stealing horses or they were rounding up horses, and the Spanish considered it stealing, and they were selling them to the Comanches, and selling them also, taking some of them back to Mississippi. So no wonder the Spanish were upset that they were in their territory carrying on this trade, and so they killed them. And so it's a fascinating part of our little bit of history. Plus, there were also new Indians moving in from other parts. Here's a Coushatta village right here. Where the Coushattas from originally? They're all the way over in Alabama. So, or in that, I believe, or in Mississippi, but they weren't there originally. So they're already beginning to move in, because at this point, Spain is losing control of their lands, and there's all these different people from all over the different ethnic groups are coming in. This is a great map, actually from 1828, but you can see the border that was signed between the United States and Spain in the Adams Own East Treaty, and that's that. And Texas starts to get its shape as a result of that. See, it goes all the way up there and then follows up that direction all the way to the top there. And part of the fun is to see how Texas is combined with Coahuila. So we had a really strange shape here. There's Coahuila, here's Texas, and it just goes around. And there's a little bit of interesting stuff in our area. We have the Indians Huecos and the Tawacanas, and aquí encuentra hierro, or here you can find iron or copper, I think. And yeah, there's a better view of it. Yes, yeah, Tejas. That's right. Yeah, it was original. I think it's a Caddoan word for ally. So that's where we got the word Texas. Now, it's always bothered me that all the good records of what our indigenous people in Texas, they're all in Oklahoma. We ran all our indigenous people out of Texas just about. And so no wonder they're in Oklahoma. But the Gilcrease Museum has these wonderful watercolors, and I still have never seen them in person. I really, that's one of my goals, is to go up there and also get a good scan of them. I tried for Sam Haynes, I think you had Sam Haynes talk here recently. He has a website on the borderlands, and in order to try to get some images of these Indians, it's just impossible. Gilcrease is the only place that has anything. And these wonderful images were done by a Mexican artist who was with a Mexican expedition, a scientific expedition, in 1829. It was a scientific survey of the Anglo settlements in Texas, as well as the Indian settlements as well. And this scientific survey, they had an artist with them. They had a map maker with them, Berlandier, a Swiss naturalist. It was a pretty interesting group of people involved in that. And of course, they decided that it's time to limit Anglo immigration into Texas. They're not following our rules. So this, as a result of that Mir y Terán expedition, the law of 1830 was put out, which said no more immigration. And you can imagine that, of course, upset the people that were already here, but it also, and the reason why do you think that they didn't want more immigration? Partly because they weren't following the rules of the Mexico's rules, and part of it was slavery, big part of it. So it's an interesting story. Yeah. But anyway, these wonderful watercolors were done by this Mexican artist Linos or Jose Maria Sanchez y Tapia. And now, more famously, you had George Catlin in Indian Territory, and I moved out of Texas. The reason why I had to go out of the UTA just for a bit, because we do have some rather poor representations of these, but this is the original. So this is from UTA. This is the original in the Smithsonian, and it was printed. This was finally published, first published in 1841, but the Smithsonian's goes all the way back to 1834, and it's a magnificent portrait. And I thought y'all'd like this. While I was searching around, here's a Gilcrease Caddo Indians gathering wild grapes. I thought that was pretty good for Grapevine, you know. Pretty neat piece. Now, our settlers of many different origins start coming in, and this is Stephen F. Austin's map. We have that. We have, you know, portraits of Stephen F. There's also this up in our area, near our area, is this Nashville Company, and that's why I asked Tommy if his relatives were part of that Nashville Company, but he says he doesn't think so. But anyway, the Robertson colony in this area started out in Nashville, Tennessee. It was a group of investors. They got permission from the Mexican government to settle in the 1820s in Texas, and the Spanish or I've drawn a blank. The name for Stephen F. Austin, his impresario. Sorry, impresario. Okay, so the impresario of our area was this Sterling Clack Robertson, and he, of course, was supposed to get in a certain number of settlers by at a certain amount of time. Well, he may or may not have gotten enough by the time of the law of 1830. And there was a conflict between him and Stephen F. Austin. This is, again, that map that shows that, and the shape of Texas is really in flux. Here's the Big Bend right over here. Really, whoa, it's really a very odd shape. But so our area, these maps reflect this Robertson Austin dispute. Sometimes it's given to the Nashville Company, and other times it says it's Austin Williams Grant. Okay, and the reason why is because Stephen F. Austin said, okay, Robertson had his chance, he didn't get in there, and so I'm going to take over his grant. That made Sterling Robertson really mad, and so they were lifelong enemies. They didn't like each other. He didn't like Austin, and Austin didn't like him, apparently. There's the Nashville Company again. Anyway, the heart-shaped Texas from about 35. This is a very famous map. Then another one shows the beginnings of Texas counties, and up here, well, I was going to show, first off, I guess I should try to zero in on this. So you can see Robertson right here is in our area right here. The Trinity is over here, the Brazos is right here, the Cross Timbers are right there, and there's the Caddo Village burned by General Rusk in 1839. That's what it says right in our area, right up there. And it's a pretty, this is the Hunt and Randell map of 1839. Now, here is a letter we got here at UTA that I found in the collection and had it in the last exhibit. It says, this is a letter from General Rusk to Sam Houston's secretary. And he's trying to convince Sam Houston that they need to go after the Indians in our area. Because Sam Houston is a big friend of the Indians. And and he's trying to convince him. He says, "Dear sir, since writing you yesterday, I have received some information from a source entitled to great credit of the undoubted hostility of the Cherokee Indians and of some matters going on between them and the Mexican government. I am blah, blah, blah." He says, down here, he says, "The Caddos ought to be exterminated, and I'm not so sure about the Cherokees." And he was able to put a lot of this into practice in the next administration, because that's, as we all know, Lamar's policy was ethnic cleansing. He said, just get rid of them all, and they did. So it's a fascinating stuff in many. But there's Rusk's signature. He says it's a fascinating material. And here is our map right here again, showing that our area right here with the Caddo villages burned. And now this is not an easy issue. None of these issues are easy, and it's not all one way or the other. It's very complicated. There was violence on both sides. I mean, this is not something that we can't just say, "Oh, it's all our fault," or "It's all their fault." No, it's very complex. Like any kind of war, everybody is guilty of some terrible atrocities. So, it's a fascinating time period, but it's also, I wouldn't want to go back, and I wouldn't want to be back then. I guarantee you there's some terrible stuff going on either side. That was Aerosmith's map. Again, this shows the Caddo villages, again, burned by General. They got in a rut talking about that, but they did. They talked about it a lot. Now look at our area too. Excellent land. And I would agree with them. This area, the wonderful, as your mayor mentioned, the three types of soil here. Mayor Tate, you said something about sand, sandstone. I remember some sandstone when I was a Boy Scout, and I was so impressed with that sandstone. I had never seen sandstone before, and it was really, and was it kind of reddish? Kind of red color, yeah. So, see, I haven't been up to Grapevine in a long time, but I definitely remember that. It was fascinating stuff. Right here, here is Robertson. We've got Robertson's papers, a big portion of them. And one of our professors, Dr. Malcolm McLean, was a descendant of Robertson. And so if you're interested in anything about that colony, and most of it was down farther south. Here's Franklin down here, and I think somebody mentioned Franklin, Tennessee or something earlier. Yeah, so anyway, the multi-volumes that were published way before my time. Also, some of our maps, we have a lot of modern maps, and some of these are pretty good, and some of them are pretty inaccurate. This one is these are 3 historical sites in relation to Arlington by Arista Joyner. This is from the Arista Joyner papers. And then we have other things like this Peters Colony map, and they didn't even spell Peters Colony correctly. So but then if you go to the General Land Office in Austin, you see a really good map from the period. So it's much better from 1854. That's just the title sheet, part of the title. Now I want to show you the first map of Dallas, first printed map of Dallas. There's 3 copies that I know of so far. One is at UTA, one is at Harvard, and one is at the Bibliothèque Nationale in Paris. First printed map of Dallas is done in France, in Paris. So it's kind of interesting. And let me show you some close-ups of it. This is the inset, Le Plan des lots à bâtir et des jardins de Réunion. So the plan there of La Reunion, how they were going to lay it out. And it's a real estate development, guys, just like we're doing today. They're going to sell lots, and you're going to have yards, and it's an interesting piece.
Is that how Reunion Tower got its name?
That's the Reunion, and it was just in the corner of West Dallas. So this is a detail of that map. Now I wanted to show you. This is the Tarrant County right here. So Grapevine would be right about here, okay? And then this is the road to Birdville, the county road to Birdville. See, it says Birdville right there, and it goes all the way from Dallas. Here is Reunion, which is on the west side of Dallas, and there's the Fort Worth Road right there. It goes all the way over to Fort Worth. Now, this is kind of interesting. Let's see. I'm skipping now. We have all kinds of stuff at UTA. We've got the bird's eye views. The better ones, the huge collections are at the Library of Congress. There's a great collection at Amon Carter. A lot of you probably don't realize they have bird's eye views of every city up west of the Mississippi, just about, at the Amon Carter. Not just Texas. Yeah, those are houses. Yeah, see, it's a bigger place. Yeah. Oh, and they're very proud of that too. That was part of the sign of progress was to have more smoke coming out of your city. The more smoke you had, the more progress you had. It was a good deal. Yeah, but it really was that big, and they did have some pretty big development. That's 1891. There were earlier bird's eye views in 1876 and 1888. So there were a lot of these bird's eye views. We have this one of Laredo. See, Laredo was a good sized town at that time as well. And these are pretty darn accurate. You can really research them. They really have a lot of things going for them. This is from our postcard collection. Here's Fort Worth, bird's eye view in July. Well, it's stamped July 19th, 1909. Somebody sent this postcard at that time. And I noticed right over here, I was a little disappointed. I didn't see a single air conditioner on these roofs. But no, I'm just kidding. But yeah, believe me, I remember the days when we didn't have air conditioning, and boy, this would have been horrible. Now, here you go. Finally, I finally promised you I'd show you some Grapevine stuff. And this is a postcard. You've probably seen it before. If you've gone online, you can get to a lot of these things on our website. And I wasn't sure about the date on this one, and I don't think they're sure about it. 1908 or earlier, yeah, the drugstore. You guys can tell me all about this. I really don't know much about it, other than I can see some good buggies and wagons. Wonderful stuff. We also have this one from 1929. Yeah, there's the Will Hoyt garage right there, the Gulf Station. Lucas's, there was probably Wall's Drugs. I don't know, but anyway, I figured you guys could really tell me more about this. It's a wonderful, yeah. And then see, you can actually zoom in a little bit and see. Look at those wonderful Model Ts over there. And then there's a Model A on the other side over there.
The two-story building on the right is what's now Tolbert's. The second story is all gone.
Okay, you say that one's Tolbert's on the right, the two-story building? There's the Magnolia Gasolines. They sell that right there.
That's really 3 stories in there. Because they're still.
No, it's two. It was the Woodman of the World building, the Woodman Auditorium upstairs.
Well,
The fire codes are still the same.
Yeah.
yeah, well, it's a great image. And you realize our humble beginnings. And I tell you, this place, it's magnificent today. I'm just amazed at this. I'm just amazed every time I come here. And I need to spend more time here. It's just great. Here's a Baptist church here in Grapevine and the Grapevine High School, public school building. Now that's also from Mr. Garrett's postcard collection. By the way, Mr. Garrett's postcard collection regularly goes down to the Bullock Museum in Austin. They have a whole wall of postcards, and we feature the Garrett postcard collection down there. So this is a real rarity. I bet you haven't seen this one. And I'd never seen it. We just purchased it recently. And it is so cool. This is As the Crow Flies, a 200-foot airline boulevard between Fort Worth and Dallas. And this is from 1934. Hitler had barely started his Autobahn when this was put together. So and there's Grapevine right above the airplane right there. See, way out in the country there you go. I live over here in Carrollton, so and then I grew up right down here. In fact, I grew up real close to where the guy that made this map lived. It was pretty. But how do you like that Ford Trimotor right there? That's a good one. And here's another piece from the Star Telegram collection. A lot of you are already familiar with it. It's on our website. This is from 1938. Here's a recent air picture of Grapevine, located in a rich agricultural region in northeast Tarrant County. The main street in the center is a part of State Highway 121, which links Grapevine to Fort Worth with concrete paving. Concrete! At the top of the picture, the highway intersection with number 114 running southeast and northwest may be seen. Outstanding in the picture is the Grapevine Water Tower with the name painted on it. Grapevine is the scene of the annual Cantaloupe Festival, when farmers bring in the choice specimens and a queen is crowned to reign over the program. By the way, I didn't bring any cantaloupe queen pictures, but we have a lot of them. So, but now, well, the reason why they did that, let me show you, because we have the original picture, the original photograph that was taken from the air. Now, the problem is I've got glare on this. I found this at the last minute, and so I did not get a good scan of it. So it's actually doesn't have this glare on the original. It's pardon me? Yeah. Yeah, it's that's a little fuzzy there. Things are a little fuzzy in that place. You don't want to go there. No, I don't know, but no, I don't think it's digitized. So I just found it. So there's a lot of things like this that you can find in our collection if you come in and do some research. And I can't do all the research for you, but I tell you, it's a magnificent collection. There's really some amazing stuff. Now, this is some other things I bet you haven't seen. These are, now you may have seen the ones in Austin because they're online, but these are not. And this is a Sanborn map from 1935, corrected to 1947. And these fire insurance maps have every kind of details you can imagine. Those of you are already familiar with Sanborn maps, but they have lots of information that would be useful to insurance companies. For example, right over here on the right, it says the fire department, volunteer system, 1 chief, 1 assistant chief, and 19 members. 1 Model A Ford truck carrying 1,400 foot, 2.5 diameter hose, 2 30-gallon chemical tanks, et cetera, et cetera. So extension and roof ladders. Anyway, fire alarm by telephone and electric siren located on steel water tank tower. Anyway, but there's also these types of things give you lots of information about what the buildings are made of. So, yeah, this is just the key. This is the first, let's see. it's going to show some more details. In addition, yeah, okay, so here is downtown, the east, yeah, Main Street right there, and then East Highway, Northwest Highway there. And there's, let's see if I can blow it up. Again, you'd have to study it on your own. I'm not, and I can't tell you anything because I'm so ignorant about Grapevine. But I tell you, it's a wonderful collection, and you'd really appreciate being able to get to access. Each one of these insurance maps by Sanborn, they're all different because they would add stuff to these things. So if you see one online somewhere, it doesn't mean that it's the same one online at another place, because they had rubber cement and a piece of paper. So if they tore a building down, they would put the parking lot and just staple it right over it, so that would be the next year's edition or something. So lots of things like that.
How are these displayed there? Are they in drawers?
We have them we have them in boxes, and we have lots of North Texas cities, towns and cities in North Texas. So, yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
When you show that exhibit of Africa, do you have those always framed, or are they only framed for an exhibit and you keep them out of the frames?
Yeah, keep them out of the frames. Yeah, they're only for the exhibit. That's the only time we put them in frames. And then, it's, so a lot of times we don't get things exhibited too often. But here's another one from 1940, of Grapevine. Now this is from the Fort Worth Star Telegram collection, and again, it's got lots of details that you can zoom in on. And
Is that being cleaned up, or is that just how nice it was?
it's how nice it was. The cars have they're nicer models. At least they won't overheat quite as often as the others. How many of you spent many an hour on the road, on the side of the road, with an overheating radiator? I sure did when I was a little kid. Oh, my parents' car was always overheating. This was a wonderful piece in our collection, and I'm sure there's many, many more like. But this was one of the last fellas, Bryant Weddle, shown bringing in a load of cotton. He's one of the few Grapevine, Texas farmers who still use a team of horses. This was in 1941, and a really, really neat piece there.
I wonder if that's Wesley's grandfather.
Oh, they still have kids here
How do they
today.
still?
Still kids, Weddle's still around, huh? Well, how wonderful. And then I thought you would all appreciate this. You've probably seen this one many times, but this is they're breaking ground for the Grapevine Dam, the dam project. Yeah, well, no. We have the dedication too. I think. Here's. See, they're breaking ground. Yeah, and then see the next one doesn't have. This is the dedication right there. Yeah. So what I think is this earlier ones. See, they're just breaking ground. They have the shovels. They're getting ready to do it. They have Amon. Let's see. Excuse me. Yeah.
Right there where the dedication was. As you go up on the dam, and it was there for years.
Oh, okay.
I was there.
Oh, okay. Okay, Mr. Tate, I won't argue with you. Yes, sir. I believe you. Okay. Well, according to this, they've got somebody tried to identify. We have the papers, by the way, of John Carpenter, who is one of the Dallas mayors, and John Carpenter is in this picture right here. There he is, I believe. Now, of course, you got Amon Carter. I recognize him. And then this, according to I don't know who got this information. Maybe they may have gotten it off of the original Star Telegram, but it says all the different people in it. There's from left, Mayor Floyd Deacon of Grapevine, Frank Wilson of Dallas, John W. Carpenter, then president of the Trinity River Improvement Association, then Congressman Wingate Lucas right here of Grapevine, Colonel Henry Hutchins Jr. of Dallas, Mayor Edgar Dean, Dale Temple of Dallas, Amon Carter, Congressman Hatton Sumner of Dallas, Colonel Bernard L. Robinson of Galveston, and John M. Fouts, General Manager of the Trinity River Improvement Association. Anyway, that's from a Star Telegram box. Now, I certainly...
Do you know why it's a three-handled shovel? It's in our museum.
Is it in your museum? Oh my goodness.
Maybe one of you be the first one, so all three of them did it at the same time.
Well, that sounds like an Amon Carter type thing. You know, he didn't want to share any. Well, I just think it's funny. It's good. It's good stuff. Very neat.
And they still use that shovel. Do you use it for the dedication of the groundbreaking for the people over here? Mayor Tate, did you all use that for the ground, or did you use it for the groundbreaking of the shovel, the Main Street station? Did you use it there? The three-handled shovel?
That shovel.
I could possibly be wrong. They could have had that map. I mean, Floyd Deacon was mayor when they broke ground, but they had that map.
Well, they seem to be wearing the same clothes right here. That's what I was. That's what I was thinking.
They had a map like that for the dedication, and Floyd Deacon was the mayor when they broke ground. But I thought we have a picture of a platform that's much smaller than that.
Oh, okay. And then see, here's a later photograph. Carpenter looks pretty old now. A few years older. I guess everybody looks a little older. And
that one at the end is Tate Mayor's father, Gordon Tate.
okay, that's your dad.
That's my dad. I got there was 8 red buttons in that door there. 8 red buttons for 8 gates.
Oh my goodness.
Push one of those red buttons and it lowered the gate. It took a long time to do it. I mean, it didn't just drop.
Yeah.
It was electronically. It took a long time to close the gate.
Wow. Do you remember how long it took to fill that dam? I mean, gosh.
First year, I remember that general said we were in a drought. He said in a normal rainfall, the lake will fill up in 5 years. It filled up that first spring when they had that 15-inch rain when Montgomery Ward got them.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. That was the year that. Oh my goodness. Wow. 1947 or well, no. That's 50, 51, 52. Yeah. I'm sorry. I don't know my dates. My. Wow. That's great. Yeah. Boy. Yeah. Wow. What a neat piece. Here is another view of it from the. Yeah. We've got a lot more aerial views too. If you're interested, there's a chance that Tommy Simmons' dad's farm is on one of the, I don't know, but in the aerial views, I didn't get a lot, but I hope you can come back and sometime come down and visit our collection. Now, if you want to take a photograph of this, this is a good way to search all of our collections. You can take a photograph with your phone, and this will, if you just do a Google search, you can say UTA Library Special Collections, do a search. That'll bring up the whole big thing. But if you want, there's a lot of different websites that we have that feature our stuff. We have the UTA Digital Gallery, which you can search, which will have many of those photographs that I've shown you. And I think several of you have already looked it over. But then there's cartographic connections, which has a lot of those maps, and you can download some of those maps. We also have gallery guides to some of our exhibits. Those are fun to download. They're all PDFs, and they're like having a book about some of our various map exhibits. And then the Continent Divided website. If you haven't seen that website, that's a huge website on the U.S. war with Mexico. We also have blog posts where we feature things that have been recently coming in. We have advanced search in our catalog, which is a real good way if you know, say, a title of something, or you know an author of something, you can find it pretty fast in there, but you have to limit it. It's complex. You have to limit it to maps or the type of piece. The Texas Archival Resources Online, if you're not familiar with that, just do a search on Grapevine sometimes, and I bet you'd find stuff all over the state that's in various archives everywhere in the state. And these are finding aids that will help you find if you just want to find a relative, you could do a search in there, and who knows, he might turn up, or she might turn up. It's just cool stuff. Sam Haynes was here. I think he talked about his borderland interethnic violence in Texas. But then, of course, the Handbook of Texas, the UNT portal and they have over 5,000 of our maps online. And then the Wikipedia, I saw you're out there, somewhere out here, I saw the a glissé, or a copy of the, and maybe it was in the library. Yeah, it was in your library here, of the Mitchell map of California, Texas, and Oregon. Well, we have the original, and ours is on Wikipedia. So we have a lot of our stuff that's actually been put on Wikipedia, and it gets millions of hits. The article on Manifest Destiny, we have that lots of stuff there. So anyway, we'd love to have you come by. You're welcome to come in. I usually try to show things off. Right now, we're in a state of flux right now because we're getting new windows in the library, but and we've got a lot of the books boxed up. But if you come between now and December, I'll give you a grand tour. Love to have you over there. But thank you so much and you've been yeah.